I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, and Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Jacqueline LOWN-PETERS, and I wrote A Real Hip Woman. I decided to write the book many years ago due to many experiences I was having that actually turned into miracles. Most people are not as blessed as I was to have them start pretty early. I was hit by a car when I was 4, and I was put into a body cast, worried about a broken leg, without checking me over and finding out that my right hip was dislocated. The specialist on call was an ear, nose, and throat specialist, so he did not check me over, so I was put into a body cast with a dislocated hip. For 3 months, I wore the bones down on my right hip, so when I was supposed to be getting out of a cast and walking, there was no way I could walk. So that set up many, many surgeries from then, back in 1961, to now. And the book's title comes from having 15 hip replacements. And I felt like the beginning of my life was very difficult. I don't remember most of it till I was about 8. I start to have memories. I'm sure it was part of the way of coping as a child, not having the skills to handle what was going on. And I have been doing quite well ever since. I've had, like I said, 15 hip surgeries. So it's been a journey. I was told I would never have children. I was blessed to be able to have a whopping 10-pound baby, and he's now 6'5" and 240 pounds. So my book is mostly to give you some hope to move forward in whatever challenges you have. I had to go through the infertility, but I proved them all wrong, that we were able to conceive on our own. I lost a child at 5 months being pregnant, and that set me up for someone seeing what I was going through, and the sadness that I had, that when she became pregnant a few years later, she blessed us with her baby. So my second son, Nathan, is an adoption, but he is born in my heart through and through, so I don't even think about that. I was blessed to be able to be born in a Christian home. My mom and dad are believers and kept me moving forward through everything. So it was good for me to follow in that and to learn that, to do that at a small age, that I would be able to know that God has a purpose for me, and I was supposed to just move forward and do what I could to get through every challenge that I had to. When my leg, when I was let out of the body cast, I wasn't able to walk, and they were concerned about the leg stopping growing because of the damage that was done. So I had traction, and I had um, many things done to me. In my book, I kind of explain it a little more thorough. And then I also have pictures to show what the traction looked like and what the body cast looked like. And um, one of the main things I wanted to touch on was how back in the 60s, late 60s, things were not covered as much as now. We would put everybody in counseling to try to deal with it. And our family knew of the accident, but we never talked about it. I mean, my brothers, who were a part of the situation, they had the guilt they carried. My parents carried guilt. I carried guilt because I, had these special needs that everybody had to be aware of and work with. And I wasn't until I was 30 and pregnant did I see and hear actually what happened when I got hit. And it was that my brothers, I had been wanting to go with my older brother, who was a year older. So I was 4, he was 5, and the oldest was 7. And he was playing at the park, and my mom and dad said, go get your brother and bring him home for dinner. My mom had just had a baby, so she had one in a crib. She was like 36 and had 4 kids. So I went with my brother, the one just a year older than I, and we went to the park. And Johnny, the oldest, he didn't want to come home yet, so we headed home. And Jesse, my the brother just a year older, he wanted to run across the street. And so I was holding his hand, and he took off running, and I freaked and got scared and stopped right when a VW came around the corner and hit me broadside. And that was the beginning of a life-changing experience that I've dealt with up to today, and I will for the rest of my life. And even though these horrible things can happen to you, there is hope that, God is in control. Things will turn out better than you ever think. Even when you wonder about stuff happening, you can, just constantly struggle with being depressed because it's just a constant one after another happening. I had my first total replacement when I was 32. And then I have had many surgeries after to revise the hip and keep it going. Because when I was hurt as a child, the bones were worn down from the rubbing, and it was something that they had to create surgeries to continue to build. They took bone off my femur to make the socket stronger and bigger. So if I ran, it wouldn't come out. So I was never allowed to run, and I was never allowed to jump and do a lot of things that kids do because of that situation. But, when I was going through it, I knew nothing else really. That was my life. Through those years, definitely I lost hope. When I was little, I don't think I really realized how much I was going through. I just had to do whatever I was told to do and what surgeries and all. But as I got older, I was fearful of not getting married and having children and all that. And my hope was gone for some of that, because I was just like, I'm hurt. I have issues. I use canes periodically, depending how tired I am. And I just had some limitations, which made it. And then, of course, everybody's saying you'll never have any kids because you had so many x-rays as a child. And that was difficult. And I never believed that. I thought, oh, that's just ridiculous. But then later on, when we did become, Michael and I got married, and we tried to have kids, and it was 6 years before we started. And actually it was 5 years that we had tried for a couple of years and nothing happened. So then we went to fertility clinic, and they said that I had issues and Michael had issues, and there's no way we'd conceive on our own. And the funny thing is the family has a costume shop. And at the time, we had Elvira was hot. She was just a big part of the community for Halloween and for costumes. And so I had been talking to my mom, concerned about not being able to get pregnant. And she said, well, what is it? What excites Michael? And I said, black, something black nightgown or something. And then my mother suggested I go as Elvira home and then see what happens. Because I had gone through the infertility clinic and they said, well, you are ovulating, but you don't have what it takes to make it happen. And, that's rather depressing, but they did say, well, we're monitoring you, so you are ovulating. So if you were to get pregnant, this would be the time. Well, I went to the costume shop. I got all dolled up with the long black wig and went home and, just surprised my husband. And before we knew it, we were pregnant. And we believe that was the moment that the inspiration for both of us. And then when I did tell the infertility clinic I was pregnant, they didn't believe me. That was like 33 years ago. And so they said, we were doing the home test and they said, well, they just started and they're not proof. So I had to have a blood test. But praise the Lord, I was pregnant and I had to be considered a high risk because none of them believed that I could do it on my own. And it was a little bit of a difficult time with watching, blood pressure and all the things you need to. And then I had to go on bed rest the last couple months. But I had a 10-pound baby, and he was just as healthy as could be. And it's just been a real miracle to have him. But during that, it was very easy for me to be hopeless because, everybody tells you negative. Nobody gives you any hope. And I just believe that my God is a higher power, and he has the ability to make anything happen. So praise the Lord that it was something that was meant to be, because he is just one of my stars in my life as having him. He's just so special to me. And so I do talk about him, and then I talk about my miscarriage and with Nathan and in the book. And it's just, he was, somebody knew I had lost a baby at 5 months in vitro, and not in vitro, but in being pregnant. And she came and said, I think I got pregnant because you need the baby, or you can have the baby. And she said, whatever you want, you can have the baby. I'm not going to keep it. And so I went through with her with the pregnancy, and she let me go to the doctor's appointments, and she would say, talk to the doctor, and the doctor would say, is your baby moving? And she would say, it's not my baby, it's her baby. And it was just such a remarkable person to do that, because after having one child, I never could probably give up a child or do a surrogate, because once I heard the heartbeat and I felt the movement, it was mine. I could never do that. But she blessed us with Nathan. And then Nathan was born with an umbilical cord around his neck 3 times. And I was scared because he came out blue as could be, and the doctors, unwrapping his neck, and he's so blue and he's not crying. And the doctor, took him away right away and worked on him. And then you hear him cry. But you wonder how could he live through that? And then the doctor said, this baby was meant to be here. He was meant to be here on this earth, because most babies couldn't live through 3 times around the neck. And he does have some frontal lobe issues. It kind of give him the symptoms of ADHD growing up. And we had some challenges there, but we got through it. And even now he's 27 and he is remarkable. He's doing great at his job. He just got promoted. He did make it through high school, where there was difficult times with seeing if that was going to happen. But, I wouldn't have been able to do that without the blessings from God, and making that all open up, and just knowing that God brought him to us. This is something better than I ever could have dreamt. And I'm just so grateful. And, I have a story about both my children. I couldn't be happier. My parents, they met back in 1930. What was it? 30. It would have been 1953 3, and they got married shortly after they met. And then they had a child just slightly after a year of getting married. And then she had 2, my brothers both were a little over a year apart. And then I was a year next. And my mother had prayed and prayed that if she had a girl, because she already had 2 boys, she prayed that the girl would be not as tall as her, because she was a tall girl. She was 6 foot in the 6th grade and towered over everybody, which gave her some issues about that. And then I was born, and so she was so grateful. She said she had prayed and prayed that I would never be as tall as her. Well, out of 5 kids, I'm the shortest one. I'm 5'9", which isn't short, but my 2 sisters are both 6 foot, and then one brother is 6'2" and one's 6'5", and so we're tall family. And but I'm the runt of the bunch, which is kind of humorous, and she prayed specifically over me to not be too tall. Kind of crazy, but I'm happy to be as tall as I am. Works for me. Another story I tell in my book, and by the way, the book is called A Real Hip Woman. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And I speak of the situation when I was in middle school. They had to do some more surgeries, and I got to have an intercom system at home, so I wasn't able to go to school. So it all started from when I was in the hospital. I had a body cast, and I had horrible nurses that were old, and they were in the military. They were military nurses, and they were mean. I was put in the baby ward, and I was probably about 12 or 13, and they gave me a little silver dingy bell to ring when I needed to go to the bathroom. Well, I couldn't get up and go to the bathroom. I was in a hospital bed, but I was far away from where the nurses' station was, and I had this little dingy bell. So it happened about 3 nights in a row that I was ringing it for somebody to come bring me the bedpan. Well, that didn't happen. So I couldn't hold it anymore. So I wet the bed. Well, you're in a body cast. So what happens? The bed gets wet. The cast gets wet. You get wet. And the nurses would have a fit telling me, why can't I wait till they come? And I'm saying, give me the bedpan next to the bed and I'll get myself on it. No, that's unsightly. We can't have that out. And I'm begging them, please, I don't want to. I'm pre-puberty. I don't want to be wet in it where the cast is going to stink. It's wet. It's going to break down. And it was just such a difficult time. And I cried. And on the 3rd night, I finally said I'd had it. And I got up out of bed. I mean, I jimmied myself up. So I was standing on my left leg, and I had the cast on my right leg. And I was leaving the hospital. I said, my mother can take better care of me than you guys do. And come to find out, my mom, well, they, of course, were very upset with me when they came and found me halfway out the room. And and it was just crazy. And my mother said, let me have a hospital bed and I'll take her home. So they let her have a hospital bed, and they moved it to the house. And I was in her sewing room because she was a seamstress by trade. And I had my hospital bed, and they fixed a TV in there. And well, now what are we going to do? Because she needs to go to school. So then they rigged up a intercom system that the teacher in the classroom would call my house, and I would answer the phone, and then we'd put it on a speaker and we could communicate back and forth. And I did that for about 4 months that I had to wear that body cast. And I became the girl in the box, And when I was able to walk and go to school, then I was like this star at school, which was very frightening for a middle school because I was insecure already with my medical issues. But then here, I didn't know any of these people. I'd heard them over the intercom, so I might have heard their names, but I didn't know all these people, and it was frightening. In fact, my mom, for my birthday, wanted to have a birthday celebration for me, and which sounded great until she asked all the girls in the class could come. Well, I'm like, everybody wants to come see my situation, and I just felt like I was a guinea pig. It was terrible. And they came, and they all had presents for me, but it just was something, I think in retrospect, I would have preferred not doing it, because I did feel like I was on show, and it was a difficult time. But that was the last body cast. I had 4 body casts over those years, and that was the last one, which I was very grateful it was done. Another situation that I had to go through was when when they first found out that I was injured and the body cast came off and they were trying to make me walk and I couldn't walk. My mother refused service from anybody in Germany. My dad was stationed in Germany. He was guarding the Berlin Wall, and I got injured. And then my mother refused anybody to touch me once they found out the mistake that was made. And so she went to the doctors and wanted to know the doctor's name that did the mistake, and there was no record of it ever happening. So there was nothing we could do about it, which is disappointing, because I think the doctor should have been held accountable to the damage that he did to me. That has been a lifelong issue. But we got moved out of Germany quickly. My mom and my dad, they let my dad leave Germany, get restationed in Tucson. I went to Walter Reed back in Maryland and was in the hospital for months by myself, because my dad, he needed to work. He had 4 children, all under the age of 7. So I was left in Walter Reed and had to go through several surgeries to correct the damage that was done. And like I said, traction and body casts and one thing after another. When it was time for me to move to Tucson, they put me on a plane. The military put me on a plane, and I got lost. Nowadays, with all the technology, I don't think that would ever have happened. But for 3 days, my mother kept trying to find out where I was. Why am I not on these planes? And they just said, we don't know where she is. And then on the 3rd day, they called my mom and said, Gurney's coming in on the next plane. It might be your daughter. We don't know for sure, which doesn't make sense, because you'd think that they'd telephone or, get on some speaker for the phones and talk and who's what and where. And I was old enough at that time. I was 5, and I should have been able to tell them who I was and my name and all that stuff. But I was lost. My mother nearly lost her mind. She couldn't find me. She didn't know where I was. I finally was found and brought to Tucson. And at that point, I was wearing a brace on my leg to take the weight, because they had to let my right leg, because of the damage, it had to be reduced and left to hang without pressure. So I had a brace on my left leg to keep me up off of that leg. And I talked in the book a little bit more thorough about how braces are and such. And it's crazy. It was a difficult thing. They don't use braces as much now, nor body casts. They found that they heal better with not having all that extra equipment on you. But it was difficult. It was a very difficult life. And I just kept smiling through it. Everybody always said I was brave. And it was crazy, though. I don't think I could have made it out. I don't know that I would have made it without being a drug addict or something, had I not had the Lord to look up to. And so my book is a very strong Christian belief book, to say, without my hope and my God, I would have not made it as far as I have. And I would never change anything in my life, because it may have been difficult, but it made who I am today. And I think, if nothing else, I want the book to help give people some help, some hope, and some direction that life stinks. There's a lot of stuff going. I think life is harder now than it was even with me going through the medical stuff, because people they don't care as much as they used to. So if my book can give somebody some hope that whatever you're going through is worth moving forward, then I think I did a good job. And I hope you buy it. You can get it at Barnes & Nobles or ordering through Amazon. And it will be awesome. I believe so. So my book, let me show you my book. A Real Hip Woman. And this art, I love sunflowers, and I always have. So that I had my son design me a cover, and that's who did the cover. And I'm very proud of it and very grateful for what he did. So my family is very important to me, and I've been very blessed with a strong family. And I hope that you buy the book and give me some feedback. I'd like to hear some positives about it, because took me about 20 years to do it. I was almost done in 2013, but then I had I got a fly bugging me, so that's no fun. I had an infection after a revision that caused 3 years of trying to beat that, which I did. I continually told my infection doctors that I am going to be healed. I'm healed from this, so I'm not going to have this infection forever. And everybody said, no, I've never told anybody they've been healed from E. coli attaching to your socket on my artificial hip. And I said, I'm going to be healed. I believe it. I believe it. And then a little over 2.5 years later, the infection doctor is telling me, Jackie, I've never told anybody this before, but you are healed. And it's been a miracle ever since. It's just like, there goes another. So I had more to talk about in writing my book. So it took a little longer to do it, but I did it. And I think that's a big accomplishment for me. So I hope you buy it and read it and learn something from it, and send me information. My email's at JACLINE@yahoo.com, and I'd love to confirm with anybody. So I think it's great. This reader's magnet thing is something new to me. I'm not normally in front of a camera, so this has been a little interesting. And I think it's a great idea. I live in Tucson, and they do these book fairs, which are huge. So I thought, well, this is a virtual one, so this ought to be good to do. So I'm hoping that you go out and buy the book and let me know what you think. I just saw a question here. What was your hardest scene to write in the book? Probably the accident happening, because like I said earlier on, I didn't know what happened. And when I was 30, I found out, and I just was devastated to find out how bad my brothers had suffered from all that. The guilt that they had was terrible. And my mother and my father, my parents, they had made that decision that I would go with my older brother to go cross the street and all. And then when I found out what happened, my brother said, it wasn't just a neighborhood street. It was like a 4-lane street. And it's like, there's no way a 4 and a 5-year-old should be doing this on their own, walking across this big street. So I think everybody that was involved just really suffered. And that was probably the hardest to hear back when I was 30, and then to later write about it, and to hear both my brothers just suffered greatly from that. And actually, I think some things now still do. And I feel bad. I feel that I caused that, and it wasn't my fault. It wasn't a mistake of everybody involved. It was just an accident that's not planned. Nobody wanted it. It just happened. And I hope, it worries me when I hear other people are getting hit by cars, because it's, I went through a period of wondering, why did God keep me alive? Why didn't I die? And that was a difficult time for me, but I came away believing that that God had a purpose for me in my life, and I had to go through all of that. And whether it's writing this book or where this book will take me, I don't know, but I'm really excited that it's done and I was asked to do this. And I hope I help a lot of people. The last time I got this fly bugging me. My last surgery is 2015. I had 5 surgeries from 2013 to 2012 to 2015. I had 5 surgeries on my hip. And so the last one was 2015, and I hope I never have to do that again. I'm sure there'll have to be another one somewhere along the way. But that was tough too. And I have 7 screws holding the hip together, so it should be good for a while. So it's time for me to go. I thank you for listening. I hope I answered some questions or gave you some insight into why I wrote my book. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Goodbye.